Warning: this episode contains details that some listeners may find disturbing. Art has long been a topic for unsettling tales, with certain paintings gaining notoriety for allegedly being cursed or haunted. Fear can be ignited by various aspects: the artist's style, the depicted subject who may have passed away long ago, or a dark connection to the artist themselves. This evening we delve beyond the folklore and explore the disturbing stories behind 4 of the most haunted paintings. This is a study of strange. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Michael May, your guide into all sorts of strange things and other things. You can tell I don't script this part of the show. Tonight, I'm going to dive straight in to the topic of 4 haunted paintings. So let's start with a painting that came from a dream, or perhaps something stranger. The year was 1972. An artist named William Bill Stoneham, born in Boston and raised in California, was working under contract with the Charles Feingarten Gallery in Beverly Hills. He was no stranger to surrealism. His works often explored boundaries between childhood and adulthood, life, and dreams. Stoneham's now infamous painting, The Hands Resist Him, was based on a photograph of himself at age 5. And in the painting you see, standing beside this young boy, a young girl who is actually a doll. And behind them, a glass door, and pressing against the glass are dozens of disembodied hands. Stoneham painted this in 1972, and it sold quickly. It was actually purchased by actor John Marley, who's best known as the man who wakes up with a horse's head in his bed in the Godfather movie. The painting changed hands a few times in the years after that, and to be honest, there doesn't appear to be any strange tales or stories about this painting until it was put up for sale on eBay in the year 2000. The seller was a couple from California, and part of the description on eBay was that this painting was haunted. They claimed their 4.5-year-old daughter said the children in the painting would fight at night, and that the boy would sometimes leave the canvas. The father even wrote, "We woke up to the boy in the painting walking into the room." Then they set up a motion sensor camera, and what they claimed to capture is the doll pointing a gun at the boy. Now, as you can imagine, this listing went viral. Here's a quote from the newspaper The Spokane Review. "We decided the painting had to go," wrote the sellers, who added that they would not be responsible for any events happening after the sale. The painting became a web phenomenon. At least 30,000 people viewed the webpage, and a handful reported that they had experienced strange events just looking at the painting on their computers. One reported hearing an exorcist-type voice, along with a blast of hot air. Another reported that he became ill while viewing the painting and had to burn white sage to cleanse his house afterward. Another reported blackout mind control experiences. The painting sold for over $1,000 to an art gallery called Perception Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The sellers on eBay had actually backtracked their initial haunting claims as the post was going viral. Bill Stoneham, the artist, was still alive. In interviews, he said he had no idea the painting would be considered haunted, and the title came from a poem that his wife had written. He says the hands symbolize other lives, other possibilities. The doll was a guide, and the glass door was a barrier between waking and dream. But here's a twist. 2 men closely associated with the painting died within the first year of seeing it: the gallery owner Charles Feingarten and art critic Henry Seldis. Coincidence? Yes, of course it is. It's definitely a coincidence, but the painting still hangs in Perception Gallery, and there have been no fires, no deaths, and no other haunted story. But the gallery does keep it in storage for safekeeping. My favorite part of this tale is the artist was commissioned to create follow-up paintings after the popularity of this, and I think there was only 3 of these. The first one was in 2004 called Resistance at the Threshold. And this shows the same boy, but older now, standing in front of the same glass door, but this time the doll is gone. The boy looks uncertain, as if he's perhaps struggling with a choice, and the hands behind the glass, there's fewer of them, but they're more defined. And it's described as representing the boy's confrontation with the boundary between his inner self and the outer world. He then in 2012 made Threshold of Revelation. In this, the boy has crossed through the threshold, and the scene is now surreal and dreamlike, and there's new symbols to populate the background, and the artist called it About Awakening. And then in 2017, he created The Hands Invent Him, and this is painted as a kind of a prequel, an origin story, I'll call it. It shows a faceless mannequin-like figure, possibly the prototype of the boy himself. Stoneham said this was a painting about creation, the moment when the boy becomes real. Each of these paintings have been purchased, and while they've drawn interest, none have achieved the same infamy as the original, and notably, no paranormal claims. Stoneham himself has said in interviews, "People see what they want to see. I just tell the story. The fear, that belongs to the viewer." Haunted painting number 2. Of all the haunted paintings, the Anguished Man might be the most unnerving visually. The painting depicts a screaming figure, a face void of details, a wide mouth. It's sort of a reddish color with blue smears. It looks to me like pain or the embodiment of dread. But what haunts this painting isn't the image itself, it's the medium. This story comes from a man named Sean Robinson from Cumbria, England, and he claims that he inherited the painting from his grandmother who kept it locked in the attic. She always claimed it was cursed, and the artist, she said, had mixed his own blood into the oils. And after finishing the painting, he then killed himself. Sean brought this painting into his home, and this is when things allegedly started happening. Doors slammed, cold drafts swept through the rooms. His wife apparently would feel someone brushing her hair at night. And most frightening of all, Sean says, was the sound. A cry or a scream, an inhuman scream. And it would sound as if it was coming from inside the walls of the house. In 2010, Sean posted this story to YouTube, including videos of the painting and footage from his bedroom where you allegedly can hear these sounds. Give it a listen.
Hello, I've just set the picture of the Anguished Man back up in the top bedroom. I'm going to record it for approximately 8 hours, see if we can catch some of the activity on video, and I'll leave the light on.
It's at this moment that text comes up on screen that mentions that he left this camera recording for many hours over 3 nights, and this sound is what happened at around 2 a.m. one night. And then at 4 a.m., the door swings shut. Now, I'm not sure what I hear with the actual sound clip in that video. In terms of the door closing, I have some skeptical theories about it, but being that this podcast is an audio medium, I would suggest going into my show notes and looking at the link I have to this video so you can get the full sense and come up with your own theories. No artist has ever been named as the creator of this painting. There's no background to the tale, no date, just the alleged stories that have come out publicly. Now, when you take that and you combine it with the viral component of the video, I dare say this is likely a hoax. But if it's a hoax, it's a strangely effective one because the painting, well, it's still disturbing. It is a frightening painting. Art historian Duncan McLaren, who reviewed high-resolution images of the work, confirmed that it was painted in oil on canvas, possibly in the mid to late 20th century. No chemical traces or blood have been found. Today, the Anguished Man remains with Sean Robinson, and he allegedly keeps it locked away, just in case. Haunted painting number 3, The Rain Woman. In Lithuania, a different painting, less infamous online than the others, was painted by Ukrainian artist Svetlana Telets in 1996. Svetlana was in her early 30s, she trained in Odessa, and is known for painting moody, introspective portraits. But The Rain Woman was different. She claimed she completed it in just 5 hours, nonstop, as if someone was guiding her hand. The painting depicts a pale, ghostly woman with dark hair and a dark, wide-brimmed hat. She's standing alone in the rain, which is represented by the background, which looks like dripping paint. Her eyes stare out with sadness. Her head and neck are unnaturally skinny, and she's all in black. And if you look at it the right way, at least this is what happened to me, it almost looks like her head is floating just above her body. And after Svetlana painted it, strange things began to happen. She says that she sold the painting several times, but every buyer returned it. One man reportedly called her days after purchasing it, claiming he couldn't sleep, was having nightmares of the woman in the painting staring at him. Another said he felt that it watched him constantly and that his marriage began to fall apart soon after the painting entered the house. Even Svetlana reported hearing footsteps and seeing shadows when the painting was in her studio. And now, is any of this true? Well, there's no documented evidence of the painting ever causing psychological distress. Most of these claims are anecdotal. Svetlana has since painted several other similar figures with a similar tone and energy, and she insists there's nothing cursed about those paintings. But she does admit, quote, "It paints itself. It wanted to be seen." Today, the Rain Woman sits unsold in Svetlana's collection, and it has never remained with one owner for more than a month. Haunted painting number 4, The Crying Boy. Our final tale is the most infamous of the haunted paintings and perhaps the most misunderstood. The Crying Boy isn't just one painting. It is a mass-produced print by Italian painter Bruno Amadio, known as Giovanni Bragolin. This was painted in the 1950s, and the image depicts a wide-eyed boy, tears pouring down his face. It's a very realistic depiction. Amadio has painted dozens of variations, all with crying children. And to be very clear, the Crying Boy itself, this one painting that has been mass-produced in prints, is the one we're talking about here today. So why did Amadio paint all these crying children? Well, that's debated. Some say that these are all paintings of orphans. Others say that they're paintings that were commissioned by tourists in post-war Italy. Amadio rarely spoke publicly, but in one interview in the 1980s, he said that he painted sadness because people understand it. And his work is very provocative. You definitely are hit with a strong sense of emotion. The legend of the Crying Boy took off in 1985 when The Sun, the famous British tabloid, published a front-page headline, "Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy." It told the story of a house fire in Yorkshire, and everything burned. The whole house completely destroyed, everything that is except a print of the Crying Boy. Firefighters claimed they'd seen this before, homes being destroyed by fire, but the painting untouched. Soon reports came in from across the UK, fires, but always the same painting, never burned. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents even investigated. Eventually, it was determined that the prints were made using a varnish resistant to fire, and often these paintings are hung on a string. So when there's a fire, the string would burn, the painting would fall down, face down specifically, and it would be shielded from the flames. But even with this conclusion from the investigation, the myth had already taken root. British tabloids fanned the flame, pun intended, of the myth, and it kept growing and growing and growing until it evolved into a claim that the child in the painting was a gypsy boy who happened to have died in a fire. In 1985, BBC's That's Life addressed the legend, concluding that the mass-produced nature of the varnish likely explained the phenomenon, and that the painting and its prints were not haunted. But we're not done with the story. because one more thing happened. The Sun hosted a public burning of the Crying Boy paintings, inviting readers to bring in their prints and toss them into a bonfire, and hundreds did. Today, skeptics like myself think of this as a social phenomenon more than a ghost story. A case of mass moral panic. And it's a perfect blend where you take art and fear and the tabloid machine, and you see these claims quickly become new folk tales. If haunted paintings are real, what haunts a painting? Does it have something to do with the artist, the model, or is it something else? A painting doesn't move, but our minds do. We seek patterns, we seek meaning, we fear the stillness. Because sometimes the scariest part isn't what the painting does or the story behind it, but what it makes us imagine and feel. In the end, all 4 of these artworks remain intact. There's no confirmed curses. There's no deaths associated with them, just stories. But stories, as we know, have power. And that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to A Study of Strange. On a personal note, you might ask, why 4 paintings? Why not 5? Why not 10? There's plenty of supposedly haunted paintings out there. Well, A, I liked these 4 paintings a lot. They had an effect on me on a personal level. And B, as a skeptic of haunted objects, these 4 had a fair amount of fuel to them, interesting backgrounds where I can look up and I can see why some might think they're haunted. So many haunted objects are purely based on anecdotes, and these had a little more background, a little more stuff that you can actually specifically research, and so that's why I chose these 4. And I will provide links in the show notes so you can look up these paintings. Before we go, I do have a little business to take care of. There will probably only be about 2 episodes per month throughout the summer. Right now it's June in 2025, but we will return to a more weekly pattern at the end of the summer. However, like I did last year, I'm going to be releasing additional content on our Substack. So there will be strange mysteries and all sorts of other things that I write about and publish on our Substack. And I'm going to make sure about 50% or more of that will be free. So check that out. You can find that through our support tab on our website, astudyofstrange.com. Thank you again, and good night.